watu walio tofauti na mambo yanayohusiana na nini, ufalme wa wapi, wa kimbingu. So when we are talking about success katika jumba hili, tunaangalia success in the context of spirituality. We are looking at success in the context of bringing glory to where? To heaven. Yani inasema ya kwamba success is to become exemplary citizens of the kingdom of heaven, that God has given us advice in the Bible to achieve this success. Sometimes worldly success is incompatible. Ni kwamba wakati mwingine, na ndio maana nikasema ya kwamba the world definition of success is not how the Bible ama the spiritual what definition of the what of this success. So I want to invite us that even as we dig deep to know nini success tunaizungumzia, maana it is something that everyone desires. Kila mtu anadesire kuwa na successful what? A successful life, a happy life. But mwandishi alikuwa ananifurahisha, anasema ya kwamba that this week we are going to look at the idea of success in the context of basic stewardship and financial principles. No matter who we are or where we live, money and finances are going to be part of our life, whether we like it or not. But there are steps, practical steps that we can take along the way that, though not guaranteeing success, can nevertheless help us avoid common pitfalls. Ya kwamba kuna mashimo ambao tunaweza kujipata tumeanguka ndani in the name of chasing what? Success. Tutakapoelewa mambo hayo hivi leo, ya kwamba tutaweza kutake caution in terms of how we define success and how we work towards what? Towards success. Mwalimu, sijui wewe uliweza kuona nini katika sehemu hiyo ya utangulizi?
Asante mwalimu. Tumejifunza that hii success we are talking about can be world, can be spiritual success. And we were learning that a Christian, to be successful, to have a lot of, to amass wealth, to be successful, it is not bad. But it will depend on how we define being successful and how we use our wealth to create an impact to those who are around us. Our last week's lesson, we were learning about lesson 7, that we need to help others. They should not come to us help us, but we should be ever willing to help them. Now, as we plan for this success, that when we are successful in this life, let us also create an impact to the rest. From the introduction part, we are told that our key part, that whatever we find to do, we do it actively and ask the Lord and not to men. That anything we find to do according to our success, we should do it actively according to God and not to men. Knowing that the Lord, you will receive a reward of inheritance. We've been promised heaven, but this heaven will not come if we sit down and do nothing. And we have to work and show that whatever you are working, our work on earth here, the responsibility we've been accorded, we should fulfill it, so that this working and the planning to be successful should be intended with what God is planning us to have. We have been given about the two stories, Joseph and John the Baptist, in the Bible. These were successful men, but look at their beginnings. Their beginnings were humble beginnings. Look at Joseph. The brothers are said with Joseph because he was a favorite to his father. They never wanted to see him. They wanted him to die. They wanted him to be away from them, so that whatever the father was having, Joseph would not come to inherit. Look at John the Baptist. He went to jail. When the daughter of the king was told, "What do you want?" he said, "I want the head of John." And that is what she was given. But these two people were successful. Their success is based on how they handled God's work, how they did God's work. That Joseph remained steadfast. remained stand. He was in his. He went through all the temptations and all the tribulations because he was serving God. And we see success when we serve God and we are successful. We have to walk a journey that is very hard. We have to walk a journey that is sometimes inaweza tufanya tuone ya kwamba why are we chasing this success? But God is promising us that we should ever remain still in this, so that as we plan for this success, He will abide with us. But if we live a earthly life, this wealth, there was somewhere it was talking about this earthly wealth can come and go. It's like when a father works and creates wealth for the family. The father is working alone. When this father forgets the family, if the children are not responsible, that wealth will just dwindle in a thing of an eye. Then now, as we plan
so much. Mwalimu, kuna two characters ambao umeweza kuwaleta, ambao umeweza kuwazungumzia. You've talked about Joseph, you have also talked about John the Baptist, yeah? And if I may borrow an example of Joseph. Joseph, the Bible depicts his life. Actually, his life, he was very successful in terms of all the way from a slave who was sold to prison. He rises to the what? To the palace. At least you can trace the footsteps and see how he progressed. But now one thing that really impresses me that is that in his rising, he never compromised his principles, his spiritual principles. We see what Potiphar tried to do to who? Potiphar's name, what? The wife. What she tried to do to Joseph. It is something maybe that could have maybe given Joseph even a greater what? Even a greater success. But he chose to trust God in the what? In the whole process. And that is now the true definition of what? The success that we are talking about. And when we are talking about planning for this success, the first thing that we said is that if you want to be successful in any way, be it spiritual or in whatever that we are doing, inasema ya kwamba in that book of Proverbs chapter 6 verse 9, be ready for it. If you want to be successful in this life and be ready for eternal life, then number one, tulisema ya kwamba do not stand idle. Si ni kweli? Because being idle can never bring success in our what? In our lives. That is Proverbs 6 verse 9. It says, how long will you slumber, O sluggard? When will you rise from your what? As your sleep, little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall your poverty come on you like prowler, and your need like an armed what? An armed man. So there is the call that when we are planning for that success, there is a call for what? For us not being idle. Number two, that even as we work. Now, you see, sometimes we may be saying that we are chasing what? We are chasing success to an extent that we overwork ourselves, or we do other things which may even harm us. That time of leisure and rest are necessary, even as we do what? Even as we work, even as we chase what? We chase this success. But God has made us to be active. That is from the book of Genesis. He said that in this land you shall do what? You shall till. That one we are going to meet it somewhere here. In the day of Monday, the blessings of what? The blessings of work. Because we have said that we should never be what? We should never be idle. That unless you are independently wealthy, all the God asked man to do what? To work. Well, remember, we are talking about planning for success, and the way to success is us not being idle. Then meaning in another language that work is a blessing unto us. 2 verse 15 inasema nini?
Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it.
Yani, God put them in the Garden of Eden and he asked them to do what? To tend and do what? And keep it. That work, it was designed for their own what? For their own good. The same way work has been designed for us, for our own what? For our own good. And there is this statement in Asema hivi, and to Adam was given the work of caring for the garden. The Creator knew that Adam could not be happy without what? Employment, without something ambayo angekuwa anafanya nini? Anaifanya. That the beauty in the garden delighted him, but this was not enough. He must have labor to call into exercise the wonderful organs of the what? Organs of the body. Even after the fall, we are still seeing that God telling man that cast is the ground for your what? For your sake. So kila ambacho tunajaribu kusema katika sehemu hiyo ni kwamba that work is a blessing unto us, and it is one of the ways that God has ordained, God has put in place towards what? Success. Number 2 ni kwamba that leisure is very important. That even God himself, when he finished doing whatever he was doing, he did what? He rested. That so one of the principles towards it's not all about doing. That it is doing and also having time for what? For leisure. He didn't want us to be burdened by work, but to work joyfully. You see, sometimes we work mpaka inafika mahali ambapo you don't enjoy doing whatever you are doing because it has become what? It has become too much. So adults and the young adults should work on something, either paid or not. Even children and teenagers and everything. Even the what? Even the elderly. That this is meant to keep them what? To keep them active. What is it about work that ideally should make it something that can be a blessing unto what? Unto us. What is that? That thing that is making. What about the work that ideally should make it something that can be a blessing unto what? Unto us. That it keeps us active. It keeps us what? Engaged. That we are able now. Hatuko mahali fulani, tuko in a very different world, but it makes us active children of who? Children of God. Sijui mwalimu wewe ulijifundisha nini tunapozidi kuendelea.
We found out that as much as we're working to be successful, or we are planning to be successful, we must plan to work, and we also, in our plan to work, or as we are working, we also must plan to have some time for leisure. That we cannot work day and night, that we want to be successful. Even from the Bible, the one we are, the servants of God we are reading, they had their time to rest. They had their time to plan for the success. Then another thing we have learned, that even if we want to be successful worldly, like we want to have wealth in the world, we have to work. When we want to be successful spiritually and in God's vineyard, we have to work. Now we have to plan on how to work in God's vineyard, and we have to plan on what we are going to get, so that we will be able to account for what we are having. These men of God we are talking about, we have read how they grew, what they went through up to where they were. And now, if we cannot be able to be successful, if we cannot be able to have a plan so that we can be successful, tunaona ya kwamba at the end of the day tunaweza kosa to account for what we have. The blessing of work is that it will give us like we'll have something to offer to God, because remember, you've been learning about that we should whatever we get from our success, we should return to God. We should also make sure that the house of the Lord has something so that God's work can continue. Then this success, when we are having the wealth we get and whatever we get, we should also look forward, because it is a blessing. Our work is a blessing from God, and when God has given us a blessing, He wants us to use that blessing to establish ourselves and as well as to make sure that His work inaendelea. Because we have worked for this one, the money we get, we can account for it. We can say, I got this one because God has been faithful to us. Then this is what I'm going to give to God because it is a blessing to work wherever I am working. This is what I'm going to put into my own use because I have given to God what belongs to God. So that our plan for success will be able to do what? To go on well. We talk about Adam and Eve were given the work to care for the Garden of Eden. The work we've been given us as Christians, other than His work, is to care for the children of God in this earth. That wale ambao sisi tumechua ukweli kumuhusu Mwenyezi Mungu, we go outside there, we reach out. Tulisoma ya kwamba if you go to meet someone mwenye anaomba kuhupiliwa, you cannot go empty-handed. As much as you go, utamuhupilia and you'll give that person something. So that is why God is saying that make sure that my house does not miss food. How God does not, we are the one who work so that God can have food in His house. When we make sure that this food, wakati tunaenda kuwabariki wengine with our success, God will rejoice because that hiyo ndo kazi yake. And we are told that God knew that Adam, they wanted employment. The beauty of the garden delighted him, but this was not enough. He must have labor to call into exercise the wonderful organs of the body. Had happiness consisted in doing nothing, man in the state of holy innocence would have been left unemployed. But He who created man knew what could be for his happiness, and no sooner had He created him than He gave him his appointed work. And God created us. He knew that He will not give us, He will not make us to be idle. He wanted us to exercise our body parts, also to exercise, to have what to do. That is where, when man was created, he had an appointed work to do. The work in the Garden of Eden was divine. What they were supposed to Eden. We are seeing that even after the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, God has a plan for man to be successful. That amidst all these problems we are going through, God has a plan for us to be successful. Is that we have to take a choice that whether we want to be successful or not, because God has laid a plan for us to be successful so that give you an opportunity to go on. The promise of the future glory and the decree that man must toil for his daily bread came from the same throne. And the same throne that put Adam and Eve at the Garden of Eden to take care of it, so that they can be successful by taking care of the Garden of Eden. When they fall from the same throne, the creator that will toil and moil to put food on the table, and the soil will not be friendly to you. But at the end of the day, if we toil and moil, we'll become successful. But it will depend, where are we toiling, how are we toiling, and whether our toil and our success, it is godly or worldly. Yes, money.
includes our education and how we make a living to fulfill our basic needs like food, clothing, and a roof over our what? Our heads. It is also useful when planning even for what? For even marriage. But me, I want to focus on that we are being given an advice, and we are being told that remember now you are creator in the days of your what? In your youth. And then it goes ahead that this includes our education and how we make a living. So in the process of defining success, how then do we become successful in our what? Education? How then do we become successful in our what? In our marriages? How then do we become successful in whatever we are engaging ourselves in? You see, at times when we engage ourselves in because we want to maybe score some first class, what we use some dubious means so that we score that word. But can that be defined? I don't know. Maybe Mwalimu, you need to tell me something. Can we define that one as success? Now, using some means, or maybe which others may not be godly, to achieve something. Can you, at the end of the day, when you achieve it, can you define that one and say that now you have become successful? Maybe you can say something, Mwalimu.
We are talking about success in two ways. We said one can be successful when you spiritual successiveness, and there is world successiveness. Then when we look at the world successiveness, we see people do anything that is within their means and even without their means to get what they want. Then the way and how they get whatever they wanted, they do not mind, because they have not realized spiritual successfulness. To them, it is success, even if they use dubious ways to be successful in a spiritual way. That is why we've been given the examples of Joseph. Look at what he went through. If he wanted to be successful in world successful, I can call it, he could have accepted what the wife was saying. But he remained principled that if God has brought me from where he has brought me to this far, I've gone to change because of false accusation. I've been out of change. God is planning my success to be great. He remained principled. We see that even if the wife did whatever she did, Joseph remained to be successful.
So, Mwalimu, what is coming out clearly is that when we define success, through success, we must define it spiritually.
Yes.
As children of God, we must define it in the direction of the biblical words, the biblical principles. And that is why when you read in the Bible, unaambiwa ya kwamba heri kuchagua jina lililo jema kuliko nini? Those other fames ambazo zimekuja out of different words, different means. So that is what I wanted us to put it clear. That even as we are told that we remember our youths, that we give our best in whatever we are doing, that as children of God, we are not supposed to use dubious. Remember that Psalm chapter 15 about tuweza kusoma. Not through corrupt means. So we should maintain, we are heading there. We should maintain integrity in our interaction with our fellow human beings. Mwalimu, kuna jambo ambalo lilikuwa katika sehemu inayofuata na inasema kuhusu the earning years. And the writer was telling us that God intended for all human beings to work in one capacity or another. That one we want to agree and we have discussed in detail. That this part of our life, the working years, is usually maybe about 4 years long. For many people, this is the time when children are being brought up and educated, and when the home and other major purchases are acquired, this can be very intense time financially. It is a very sensitive time because the family is learning to work together and its member are creating lifelong bonds. Financial stress can wreck the marriage at this point, and frequently does. Now, there are things ambazo zinazungumziwa hapa because ideally we live in a modern world ambayo things have changed. In the book of 1 Timothy, hebu nisome 1 Timothy 5 verse 8. The book of 1 Timothy 5 verse 8.
If any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel.
That if one does not do what? Does not provide for his what? Own household. Ni kwamba is worse than a what? Than an unbeliever. That is Proverbs 14 verse 23. Even before I say something, 14 verse 23, it says this: in all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to what? Leads only to poverty. So katika the setting ambao tuko, mara nyingi unapata ya kwamba the husband is the breadwinner. Si ni kweli? Hata kama wakati mwingine both of them wanafanya nini? Wanafanya kazi. So in an ideal setting, the husband will be the main economic provider of the family. This way, the wife can educate their children so that they become independent people eventually, and they are ready to consciously accept eternal what? Eternal life. The modern lifestyle, also the exceptional circumstances, may make sharing those responsibilities or swapping them the earning what? The earning years. Mwalimu, unajua kuna jambo lilikuwa linanisumbua hapa, that the goal of Christian parents is to train their children to become independent adults in this life, and to fit them for the life that is what? That is ahead of them. So we are trying to define this what? Success. And when we are talking about success, we are not only talking about financial what and the fame. We are also talking about parents being in a position to, number one, provide a Christian home environment for their what? For their children. That is something number one. Even you see, when you read, I was reading somewhere, it was saying that at times some people think, some mothers think that maybe staying in a home and taking care of the children is a lesser what? Is a lesser responsibility. But it's a bigger responsibility than all the employments the world can do what? Can give. So when we talk about successful families, when we are talking about those years, that number one thing we need to realize, that as parents, as one provides, or as both of you maybe work, that we must never forget to provide a Christian home for our what? For our family. In fact, the writer was saying this will include regular and interesting worship. So without the aspect of worship, then we have not achieved through what? Biblical success. That interesting family worship, regular Sabbath school, and the church attendance, and the faithfulness in tithes, and the what? And the offerings. Now look at now the way now this is what now me I call true success. That in such an environment, children have been taught to respect God. Children have been taught to respect that which belongs to who? That which belongs to God. They are able to meet with their God in worship. That one now becomes what? Becomes true success. Teach children a willingness to work and an appreciation for it. So from our key verse, it was encouraging people to work. Si ni kweli? That and when the Bible is saying that each people should work, that does not apply to the parents and the senior people. That even the children should also be trained, should be taught how to do what? To work. Help with good education. That it is the responsibility. You see, now this is what I was saying, that the Bible was telling us that Christ desires that we may succeed in everything that we do, including even our education. So it is the responsibility of these parents to provide good education for their what? For their children. Mwalimu, before you say something, there is a statement here by Ellen White inasema hivi, that all should find something to do that will be beneficial to themselves and helpful to others. Ya kwamba tutafute jambo la kufanya ambalo litatusaidia sisi, lisaidie na akina nani? Na watu wengine. That God appointed work as a blessing, and only the diligent worker finds the true glory and the joy of life. Diligent worker will find joy, true glory, and the joy of life. The approval of God rests with the loving assurance upon children and the youth who cheerfully take their part in the duties of the household, sharing the burdens of the father and mother. Such children will go out from the home to be useful members of the world, of the society, when they have been trained. Ya kwamba they have been trained and they have loved it. That once even they get away from their parents, they become useful people to the world, to the society. So if we can not teach the children a willingness to do what? To work, then they will not be a blessing either to the vineyard of God, or even to the what? To the world. They may never be of a what? Of a blessing to others. Sijui wewe uliona nini katika sehemu hiyo tunapoelekea kumaliza.
Tukianza, I said that we should be successful and we should use our successfulness to impact those who are around us. And as we have moved, we've seen that as the parents amass the wealth, as we have this success, we should never leave our children behind. There was a statement that was saying, it will not only be good to you unless you are independently wealthy or a beneficiary of a trust fund that mom or dad set up for you, so that you could never have to work a day in your life. If you read many stories about these kids, money meant for the blessings often leads to tragedy for them as adults. Meaning that when the parent was getting this wealth, he left the child behind. He said, the child is mine, let me get it the wealth, then we'll sort the issues as we go along. But we've been told that as we grow as a family, as we plan for our success, let us not plan for the success of the father and the mother. Let us also plan for the success of the children, so that at one point when they will go out there, one, they will appreciate the work they are doing, and because you created an environment for them to learn whatever they have learned, they also create an environment for others to learn like what they have learned. And again, we look at an example of the servant of God, Job. He was rich. He trusted in God. He believed in God. He did everything to embrace God. Even he knew that I will not, sometimes my children, they might not live according to my wish as a Christian, and according to the wish of also God. But whenever he went before God, he never forgot his children. He prayed for them, and he even offered the sacrifice because he wanted to move along with his family. Look at how he responds to his wife when he's telling him to abuse God. He knew that I was living for a cause, and the God, it is Job who knew where God brought him from. Now, when we know where God has brought us from, we should also encourage our family that we live in that life. When we encourage the family to live in that life, when we encourage the family to move along as we grow, our children, they should also grow along. They will be able to account for this, so that this wealth that we've accumulated, because maybe the children have not toiled, they have not moiled. Whenever they ask for anything, it is provided for. Whenever they want to go anywhere, the provision are there. When you will not be there, they just use whatever they want to reach their means, forgetting that whatever you are giving them, you also went back to do what? To fill the cup. Them they'll be using and not filling the cup. Then we should also be very keen as we earn in our earnings, so that we move along with our family, and as we provide our Christian life, teach our children the willing to work, and teach our children the value of work. Why should we work, and why should we be successful? How should we be successful? Should we be successful so that we can post to others that we are successful and we are poor, or we should be successful to along those who are in our surrounding? Malim, that is what I was able to get from there, and we should plan for the future, not only for us, but for the children and those who are around us.
Thank you, Mwalimu. Mwalimu, the lesson of this week is touching on very many parts.
Yes.
But it's all oscillating between working and the future. But again, now, even as we work, we should not just work. You see, there's something I was now reading here. It was telling me this, that God calls his children to a higher standard in work and life. That is why I said that in the process of us not being idle, planning for success, working towards success, that God is calling us as his children to a higher standard of work. Mwalimu, I think we can highlight that word, a higher what? A higher standard of work and the what? And the life. Two things. And the writer was trying to tell us that the standard that God is calling us to in terms of working is the law of what? The law of God. And that is why we say that even now as we work, that the law of God should be in our hearts and in our what? In our minds. Because now, if now that is the standard, it means that we will work with what? Integrity. Then that integrity that we are talking about here is the integrity ambayo ni sheria ya Mungu na nini? That which has been written in our what? In our hearts. Mwalim, this thing really impressed me. It was saying that as society erodes and Christian teaching is diluted and minimized, it will become even more important for the individual Christian to live and work on a level that is above what? Above reproach. You see, kuna mahali unafaa ufanye kitu and that person atasimama aseme, indeed this gentleman did something with his whole what? With his whole heart. And when we read the case of Genesis of Laban together with Jacob in Genesis chapter 30 verse 27. To an extent that when Jacob leaves, what does Laban say? That please stay if I have found favor in your word, in your eyes. You see, some of us, the way we do our things, even when the opportunity comes for us to be dismissed, we get done what? We get dismissed because we never did our work with what? With integrity. We forget there is that 1 Corinthians that says that whatever we do, do it to the glory of who? Do it to the glory of God. Don't do something because you fear that Job is watching. Do it because God has given you an opportunity to do it, and you want to give your best, and you want to glorify God in whatever you are doing. One writer was saying that Paul advised us to always do our job well, not only to win their favor when their eye is on you. We are called to work with integrity and to please God always. So mwalimu, this is now what was very important for us. That as we work towards success, the dubious means ambazo tulizizungumzia hapo awali, tunaambiwa hapa kwamba that integrity, and we should endeavor in our hearts, purpose in our hearts, that we are going to glorify God in our strive towards what? Success. We are going to glorify God. Instead of pleasing our managers or our clients, we should first please who? Please God. When we shall please God, then we'll automatically please our what? Our managers and the rest. Now, many employers will be blessed by upright workers, like Laban was blessed by Jacob's faithful work. Alibarikiwa na kazi yake ya uaminifu. Ya kwamba ikiwa tungekuwa na wengi kama Yakobo in the present world, I think employment will be one of the best places ambao watu wangependa kukua. But Joseph's story is another example. He began as a low-level slave, but he became the manager of his master's house eventually. Potiphar appreciated the integrity of Joseph and the God's blessing through him. Integrity. Mwalimu, so kila ambacho tunajaribu kuambiwa katika sehemu hii, najua mengi tumeweza kuyazungumza katika sehemu ambazo zimeweza kutangulia, ni kwamba it is not just working. It is not just success using any means. It is success with integrity, success with us glorifying God. Sijui kama uliweza kuona nini, then you crown for us even as we finish.
Mwalimu, now you are saying that integrity should not be only in a spiritual way.
Yes.
That we should talk about integrity in our economic life, in our social life, and in our spiritual life.
Yes.
Because the examples you are given, Laban is telling Jacob to remain because he has found favor before God because of Jacob's sake. When Potiphar made a similar observation about Joseph, his work, and they rewarded him accordingly. Jacob was too rewarded accordingly because of what he stood for. Then now we can make a conclusion and say that integrity